This episode of Superconnectivity is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, me and Parrish.
Hey, Phil, glad to have you. Glad to have you as always. You know, we have got such a dedicated fan community. We're only going to read two letters. We had one that we read on Roundup. We got another one we're going to read right now from a longtime listener, Kenneth Smyson. We also got a letter again from Caleb. What's his? Not Caleb. Is it Caleb Van Buren, or was that the guy we just read from? No, Caleb Van Buren is who we just read from, and then no. I'm sorry. Caleb Van Buren is the guy. Caleb Van Buren is the guy we read last week, and he did write me this week to say, "Hey, did you guys forget about me?" And of course, no, we did not forget about you, Caleb. We read from The Vision today, which was from Stockton Piner on the Roundup. See, there's so many fans, it's hard to keep track of them all. But then we also got today, not today, but this week, from longtime listener Kenneth Smyson, where he says, hey guys, I'm enjoying the comic books so far. We had just sent him a package of comic books. In the past, when I considered reading comic books, I was afraid seeing all the images at once might ruin the surprise of what is coming. Although, as I read them, I become so engrossed, I sometimes don't see the very next panel until I look at it. That's the glory of comic books, Kenneth. I'm glad we could bring you to our side. Regarding your last podcast and covering hate speech, you asked if Superconnectivity is being too political. Well, I can say, please do not skip the politics. Art, regardless of the form, is both a reflection of our times as well as a roadmap for progress. Well, good art should be one of the two, and great art does both simultaneously. I'm 34, and I'm always evolving and growing. A decade ago, I was a narrow-minded, stubborn Republican, so was I. I wouldn't say I was narrow-minded. I won't say I was ever narrow-minded, but I certainly was a stubborn Republican. And, you know, you'd never think your mind is narrow when you're the one standing in it. Today, I'm much more comfortable and happy as a libertarian. Oh, okay. That's okay. I love my libertarian brothers. I love you guys too. Art has certainly played a major role in helping explore the complex questions about life, society, culture, etc. However, if you were to play devil's advocate, I'd say to probably spread the politics out a bit, or maybe have those be on the end of the podcast. In politics, there are two important things to establish. The message is the first thing. Image is the second. I definitely don't want an anti-Trump tangent. However, entertaining it would be, but there's an example of what I mean. Trump's recently announced financial team consists of a dozen white men, all over 50. Most are named Steve. It's kind of like being a Chris in the MCU, I guess. Point is, Trump is oblivious to multicultural society. We have become, we valued the country in its entirety. It's selected a team that is representative of our society. That's what I'm saying. In comic books, though. Regardless of his message, he carries a poor image, which hurts him. Well, there's a lot of things that hurt him. But back to Superconnectivity. In proceeding forward into political discussions, which is an important part of the art, make sure to continue to present a well-rounded show where we get to know you guys, cycle through the topics, so we can get a slice of everything that comics cover, from the fun stuff to the politics. For the most part, you guys already do that very well. Looking forward to the next podcast. P.S. Slight nitpick here, but your broadcast doesn't seem to get uploaded until a few days later. Is something delaying it? Yeah.
All right.
I think that's...
The easiest way I can say is I send it to our editor Rob, who's Rob Southgate, who is the Southgate of Southgate Media Group. He edits it, and I'm not sure the entire process of what it takes to put it up, but yeah. It just takes a couple days for him. Plus, because with we have how many, like 80 some podcasts on this network. I would say he edits most of them. That's the only thing, and he's going back to school now, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I do not blame Rob for that delay. Like, as I said in our Before the Bat Suicide Squad review, about trailers and the film I shot a while ago, yeah, shooting all this stuff is easy. Then someone has to put it all together, and that takes forever and a day. Yeah. Maybe we need to start when we go into a political content, throw up like I do on my Facebook post, and give a big bold political content warning. But yeah. So, thanks, Kenneth. As always, we will keep politics in here, but actually, this is a week where we actually don't have that much politics to talk. Because there's actually a lot of Marvel news out this week. Mm-hmm. What do you want to tackle first? Although some of it could get political. Well, actually, here's the thing I want to talk about. Because I think this is actually the biggest underreported story in the Marvel Universe this week. Do you know what I'm going to refer to, Phil?
I don't think. Well, hit me with it. What do you got?
The Runaways. Oh. The Runaways have gotten a TV pilot picked up.
Oh, yes. But
not by Netflix. Marvel is two-timing Netflix with Hulu. And I am wondering what that's about. I'm wondering if there maybe is some feeling at Marvel that Netflix didn't fulfill the promise of what they were going to do. I mean, they got their strong deal with Netflix. Or is there maybe something at play there where I can't, I kind of wonder maybe, in Agent Carter getting passed,
or
passed.
Maybe
yeah.
Do you think like Netflix is putting on DC content too, or do you think could that be someone at Marvel just saying, you don't have to be if you can two-time us, we can two-time you.
Yeah. Well, they're not doing any original DC content right now. They're just rerunning DC content.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if there is something along those lines. But actually, what I was mostly thinking was this idea that in the passing of Agent Carter, in the passing of Marvel's Most Wanted, and Netflix, not showing interest, and maybe even in just this fact that ABC didn't show interest in bringing those two through, that maybe Marvel is saying, and it's a very complex thing because, of course, ABC is part of Marvel Disney. That's part of the company. And when they're passing on these things, maybe Marvel is saying we need to expand our brand. We need to be outside of the Disney tent, and in that same way, outside of the Netflix tent. Now, there is actually a third aspect to this, which is the fact that there is a demand for these things, and it could just be that Hulu outbid Netflix for it. This is something I realized. I got Netflix because Netflix was supposed to be the one-stop Marvel shop. Mm-hmm. Okay, but of course, and this isn't Marvel, but Amazon has the tick, so I kind of feel like, I got to get Amazon Prime now, and now to get Runaways, I've got to get Hulu, so that's like I got to get the 3 streaming services just to stay up on everything, and it makes me wonder if maybe it's less that Disney wanted to expand outside of Netflix as so much as Hulu just felt we need to be outside of Netflix. We need to grab something more. We need to be beyond what we've presented, and we need to go to the next level, because if we don't secure a Marvel production from the Marvel house, and that's the thing, Legion's out there on FX, but I don't think anyone's chomping at the bit for the expanded Foxiverse. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the actual Marvel brand is powerful and valuable. This is an interesting thing that we might bring up at the next Marvel DC actual debate. Is that I kind of feel like, as I've said this, like DC has brand characters, whereas Marvel has a brand, which means that the characters at DC are of an iconic level that whether or not they do standalone, whether or not they're in a standalone universe or a joined universe or however you want to present them, those things are powerful. Marvel does not have brand characters, but they have a Marvel movie brand. So that when you go in there and you see, it's a Marvel movie, you know that is a certain thing. There's a certain thing that is meant by saying it is a Marvel movie. And that is its power as a brand. And so I can absolutely see a group like Hulu. And I would not be surprised if we don't see an Amazon Prime Marvel show getting announced soon. Because I can see how they're going to feel. We need to get that good stink of Marvel on us, and that would be pretty good, I mean, not good for me because now I've got to buy 3 different streaming services, but in general, a good thing for Marvel and for the stories they want to tell. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I don't know I don't know, like you said, did Hulu get, make him an offer they couldn't refuse price-wise? Is it just, well,
I mean, it could also be one of these things where Marvel is producing more than any one group can buy, which could be a completely other thing. I mean, that's the third option, which is that Marvel has decided to take this aggressive production stance, and create all these new shows. Because here's the thing, they do have a backbench at ABC. They do have their own company and their own set of networks, and they already did the old ABC family, which I think is now called Mindspring, is going to be running the Cloak and Dagger series. So there are all these backbenches that they can pull out of. So they might as well produce content for all of their channels and then let other people bid out on them. Because, I'm sure the runner, and what may well have happened was that they were probably working on young adult properties, and they did Cloak and Dagger, and they probably did a Runaways. And then when they're looking at where to put them, Hulu, who maybe as a streaming service felt that they could say, hey, we can do a little darker than Mindspring can. And so maybe that's the choice there, And meanwhile, Netflix, who's already maybe feeling saturated with Marvel and maybe feeling that they're kind of put on the hook to produce all this Marvel content and, maybe aren't getting the returns that they hoped they would get, or maybe just are getting those returns but just are still struggling as a company,
Do you think maybe they just want to saturate the market too? It's like basically anyone Disney's in bed with, they could be like, okay, well, if you have Netflix, you have these shows. If you have Hulu, you have this show. If you go here, you have this. You have, basically Marvel's trying to be everywhere.
Well, I think it also might even be a response on Marvel's stance to DC's television dominance.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, DC does have a strong presence in the television market. They did have shows on multiple channels, multiple platforms. And so, yeah, it could be that Marvel is anticipating that that's the next ground, that's the next battleground is these streaming services. And sort of in a kind of a reverse way, going back into the television marketplace. To that extent, did you hear the most interesting recent rumor about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. returning?
I don't think so.
Okay. This is pure rumor and speculation. So it was rumored that Robert Downey Jr. went and shot some footage, which everyone assumed was a cameo for Doctor Strange. And then people said, well, what's Tony Stark going to do in Doctor Strange? What's Tony Stark going to do in Doctor Strange? And then someone said, what if it's not for Doctor Strange? What if Tony or Maria, or Tony and Maria, who are working together, find themselves in the opening pilot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And what someone actually made a very interesting point about, which is that, as we're going into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you are going to need a Tony Stark to come in and make sure that as they're working with their superpowered beings, that they are responding to the Sokovia Accords. That, Tony may be there to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Now, an interesting thing is that we've also been revealed that Ida, who was the character we saw becoming a LMD, will be an actual character on the series next year, which I think feeds into this idea of squadrons, of a LMD Squadron Supreme. She is going to be, and I'm trying to remember, because it isn't a named actress who's playing her, but I'm blanking on what her name is right now. But she's been in genre pieces before, and I'm blanking on which piece it was. But Ida will be a character as an LMD when we open up next season. we know that we're getting Ghost Rider in there. And actually, someone else made a very interesting point about Ghost Rider being, and actually specifically Robbie Reyes being the Ghost Rider that they chose. Because there's all these reasons that they gave, but there was actually one other reason that nobody mentioned, that why Robbie Reyes is a particularly appropriate Ghost Rider to have as your Ghost Rider for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you know what that is?
No.
Because I didn't read the actual arc. Okay, so the car that Robbie drives, that's not his car. He had stolen that car, or borrowed that car before the accident. And do you know who that car belonged to?
No, I didn't read it. Who?
A gentleman by the name of Kelvin Szabo.
Oh, Mr. Hyde.
Yes. So I am wondering if that scene we saw is Quake trying to get her dad's car back. It's going to be interesting how that plays out, exactly how they decide to approach it. But it is an interesting place as we're rocketing towards September. It's August already, kids. I hope you got your summer packets done, because teacher's going to check them next week or in a couple weeks. Well, by this time it airs, it's going to be checked. And so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be back, and we're going to have to say, what all this is. And so right now, so mark my words, we're going to get Kyle MacLachlan back. We're probably going to get Tony Stark in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point, hopefully in the pilot, but maybe in another episode. I'm hoping that it's not just an end credit. I'm hoping that we open it up with Tony Stark in the office. In fact, here's what I'm going to expect. I'm going to expect that Phil Coulson goes to talk to the director, and they make it look like Tony Stark's the director. And then they pan to, of course, Nighthawk. Mark my words, he's going to be Nighthawk. They're doing a whole squadron thing here. You watch, kids. Mark my words. Why else would you hire Batman to play the director if you weren't going to have him become Nighthawk? That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So that's my thing. What do you think, Phil? Do you think any of these things could pan out? Do you think any of that makes any sense?
The Nighthawk thing, I think is definitely possible, but your whole thing is maybe they'll open the season with Robert Downey Jr. Maybe he'll be on for like the first 5 minutes of the first episode, where maybe he was the director for a couple months until they found the replacement, and then after the first 5 minutes of the episode, they'll bring in the new guy.
Yeah, well, I think that they might just present it that it's like I don't even know if it's going to be 5 minutes. I just think Phil Coulson and Mac go in to report to the boss, and the boss is there, and you see Tony behind the desk. And
or even on a video screen,
yeah, and then or something like that. We'll see. I would love it if he's there. There was also a rumor that someone said that Chris Evans might show up.
Oh yeah, I could see Chris Evans before Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. Well, although that's a little more complex, because who knows?
Winter Soldier.
You know what? Maybe they're going to really type in a little Civil War. Maybe you're going to open up with Tony and Coulson, and then maybe you close with Chris and Quake.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe Tony's talking to S.H.I.E.L.D. about hunting down Steve.
Yeah, there could be a lot going on there. And Dr. and Mr. Hyde as well. Yeah, because if you're rewriting people's brains, those people are evil. Anyway, the other really big story this week is, and this is here's my thing. I'm going to say it. This is one of those things that gets exploded on the internet based on literally nothing. Literally no statement has been released. No fact has been made. But this statement is that Zendaya, the actress who has been said to be playing a character named Michelle in Homecoming, is actually... Who is she actually, Phil?
They're saying Mary Jane Watson.
Yes. And, okay. I mean, honestly, first off, there's two things I got to say to this. First off, if they decided to make Mary Jane Watson African-American or Hispanic, I'm not quite sure. I think she might be African-American and Hispanic, as you would expect to find in a New York City public school. That's hardly a shock to me. What bothers me most about this is just how reactive everyone is about something that is literally could just honestly be someone said, "Oh, you know what I think? It's this." Even though there is evidence to suggest it's not. Even though they've already said the character's name is Michelle. And that's like, why would you go out of the way to say, "Oh, that character is Michelle," and then say, "No, actually, she's Mary Jane." Honestly, what I think you might see is that she actually is named Michelle, but she's going to be filling in maybe a Mary Jane role. So she might actually say to Peter at some point, "Face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot." Which you may go, "Oh, that's Mary Jane." No, that's Michelle. It's a completely different character. Yes, she's filling that role because we don't have a Mary Jane in this universe because we're making it up. And actually, someone actually made a very interesting point on, which is that, they were actually a little disappointed to hear that it was Mary Jane because we've already done have we done two Mary Janes? Was there a Mary Jane in the Amazing Spider-Man series, or was that just
that was Gwen?
That was
they were gonna have Mary Jane in I think Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they cut all her scenes.
Yeah, and what this person wanted was they actually wanted Black Cat in there, and I think we all want Black Cat in there at some point. Although I kind of think Black Cat is a third movie kind of character. I don't know if you really establish her as a love interest for Peter in that first movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I think that Black Cat, because they weren't really an item until she became Black Cat. I don't think she was, dating him just when she was Felicia Hardy and he was Peter Parker. I think that when they became Black Cat and Spider-Man, that's when they started dating.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how they first met. He caught her, I think, trying to pull a burglary job.
Yeah, so I think that's a much more. That's a more in-depth character. I think you need a more established Peter before you go to the Black Cat. And let's face it, with that costume, you need a more mature Peter to go up against the Black Cat. Because those zippers that don't quite work, those are
that Black Widow zipper. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't these go up? It's anyway. Yeah. So what do you think, Phil? Do you think that there's anything inherently good, inherently bad, inherently indifferent, either about this casting rumor or the fact that we get so obsessed with rumors?
Well, everyone's all excited for these movies, so there's always going to be rumors. But do you think they're trying to? Is that like the new trend? Is to get the young hero and give him his girlfriend is a person of color? Because look what they've done on The Flash, and I think that the TV show set the stage for the movie Flash, whose Iris West is also going to be African American.
Well, you know what it is because you're doing a series about white heroes, you have to have diversity because this is freaking 2016. So you actually do have to have all these other characters, and you can either decide to make the Flash black, or you just make a bunch of ancillary characters black, which is fine, and it's especially when they get to be a fully realized and beloved character. And then when you see it influencing things outside of their area, that's good too. I'll tell you one thing: it is probably it speaks to either how little faith DC had in Suicide Squad, or possibly how poorly it did that when they did Rebirth with Deadshot, he's still a white guy. Not for nothing. Rebirth, let's...
Yeah, well...
Will Smith was there,
They really didn't retcon stuff. They kind of... they brought in, the better elements in Rebirth, and they said it was a good jumping on point for new readers, but, it was still the same Deadshot, basically. I think that was in New 52, so they would have had to explain that the change in appearance.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. But it but the idea that, they have the African American Iris West in the TV show, and so the Iris West winds up being African American in the movie too. That's good when that kind of thing, speaks. I think sometimes it does get to be like, Nick Fury Jr. in the Marvel universe is always a little complex because it's because people treat him like he's Nick Fury. but he's not Nick Fury. He's like another character who, yes, he kind of fills that Nick Fury role, but he's not the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And doesn't have that much seniority in S.H.I.E.L.D. really. Though he is very good at his job, kind of thing.
Well, no, that's the thing. I'm just worried about is like I have no problem with diversity, but I'm just worrying that like some suit in an office somewhere is saying, "Well, look at that Flash show. That show's popular, and look, what's the formula?" They think there's like a specific formula now. Okay, young white hero, black girlfriend. That's what the kids seem to want now. So let's give them that in every movie and TV show now.
Oh, yeah. And certainly that could be a possibility. I don't know if I'm going to say that's what we're seeing. I'm just going to say that, anything's possible. And suits often make stupid choices like that. One of the biggest problem in any project is just this idea that people take the wrong lesson.
Well, yeah, because, look what happened after Deadpool. Everyone was like, oh, we need to make rated R movies.
Yeah, and no, you didn't. You just had a good movie. It's like as I said, seeing Lois Lane's boobs was not going to make Batman a better film. Really, it's not. More violence wasn't going to help that. Hearing Superman say, as the bomb goes off, fuck, I didn't say it, but hearing him say, the $20 word isn't going to make that a better film. It's not. In no way does it make it a better film. It just compound. It's a cheap stunt, which I guess, is what some people would claim about, diversity casting is that it is a cheap stunt, but I don't think it is in the sense that, because I think that it is actually just trying to make these characters more believable. It's trying to have that diversity of voice and diversity of persona on the screen. Because New York City is not a very white city. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of white people there, don't get me wrong, but it's not a very white city, especially if you're living in Queens. And last time I checked, Peter Parker was not a Hasidic Jew. So the idea of him living in an all-white neighborhood in Queens seems very unlikely to me, Just saying. You do have some all white neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens, but they tend to be filled with Hasidic Jews because they have very tight communities and they live near each other because you got to be near your synagogue for walking purposes and things like that. It's a lot of religious rules, and it's part of the cultural landscape of New York that makes it a beautiful place to be. But not for nothing, even in those neighborhoods, it's all intermixed with everybody else, and you get a lot of immigrants of all stripes, and that's the beauty of New York City. It is, New York City is not a white city. It is a city of diversity in every place, and that's what makes it great. And so you're not going to have 17 white people all in the same school like that, and all be friends and all get superpowers. That's although I always make the joke, it wasn't that white people just got superpowers, it's just that white people were just always having lab accidents. It actually just spoke to their white people just weren't good at science is what it was, and so it just kept on falling into vats of things. And okay, is there anything else in the Marvel universe to talk about this week, Phil?
The only thing I can think of is I saw an article today, I guess, Natalie Portman was saying she's basically thinks she's done with Marvel because they haven't called her for anything, including the upcoming Thor movie. Yeah. Well, so she's not in Ragnarok, and I think that might be a parting of the ways. There was some feeling that, she did not feel she had enough to do in the Thor films, and that's fair. It's always a rough bit in these kind of films because you do get these very good actors and very good actresses, and I think this is somewhat of the Jared Leto problem in Suicide Squad, that you have these people there that are great actors, and you want to give them stuff to do, but at the end of the day, what they're doing there is not intrinsic to the plot of the film. Mm-hmm. And so you can either waste a lot of time giving them extra stuff to do that's fun for them, but doesn't progress the story, or you can just have them there, give them some good scenes, and then progress the story. I'm sure Natalie Portman is waiting to get the call to say, next, in Thor 4, you pick up the hammer.
And depending on how Ragnarok goes, we may get a Thor 4, assuming Thor does not die at the end. Although, who knows? Maybe that's what happens. Maybe Thor dies at the end, and then maybe Thor 4 she's back. She's back again. Because as they said, they don't even tell them what they're doing. But they do have contracts for a certain number of films. And so they can come in and say, you're still under contract, so don't make any plans. But right now they're not telling her don't make any plans yet. So they may be debating on what to do with that, But that's Natalie Portman stuff. It's an unfortunate thing. Natalie Portman is like the first person to actually come out with like a not feeling too hot about her role at Marvel. Because, of course, everybody else is always like, oh, I'm ready to go back. Although I guess, Chris Evans did that for a while until people really started to talk about him dying in Civil War. He's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. It was like, because he was like, oh, I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this, as Winter Soldier. And it was like, oh, they're going to kill him in Winter Soldier and give Bucky the shield. And he's like, no. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm part of the team. Hail Hydra. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But yeah, I think that she's not on the list right now, and it depends on what story someone wants to write and whether or not they need a Jane Foster. I'll tell you where you might want to look for a Jane Foster. Captain Marvel. Yes, there you go. Because she's the leading muckety muck on that, and I'm sure we're going to get Selvig there. Is that actor still alive? Yeah, he's still alive. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure, Selvig or Portman are going to show up. Why am I? What is his name? Who plays Selvig?
Oh, I can't remember.
Is it Warner or something? Anyway, I would not be surprised if one of them shows up in the Captain Marvel film, or at least shows up somewhere to tease Captain Marvel. So we'll have to see. That is the Marvel universe, and we don't know what's going to happen. Peggy Carter could come back at any minute. Mockingbird could show up. Daredevil could be in Infinity War. Although people have said that's probably not going to happen because they have a hard enough time getting all the characters moving forward. Guardians of the Galaxy 2's progressing. An interesting statement from James Gunn, which is that he did early on consider doing the original Guardians of the Galaxy. I think, the 23rd century version with Astrovic and Charlie 23 and Yondu. But then they decided to roll it back and do the version they did with the more modern interpretation, which is fine by me. I wasn't bothered by that. As much as I liked the original Guardians of the Galaxy, I was not bothered by the fact that they went with the more modern interpretation of it.
Oh, hey, the actor who played Eric Selvig was Stellan Skarsgård.
That's what it is, Stellan Skarsgård. Yes. So I would not be surprised if Stellan Skarsgård does not show up in Captain Marvel, and if he's around, I would not be surprised if Natalie Portman is not around as well, because they have built up the character of Jane Foster in that route, and I would like to see it. I'd also like to see her dating Don Blake. Oh. That would be fun if in Captain Marvel we see that she's dating Don Blake, because he's a med student that she knew back in the day, and it would be nice just to see some guy come in walking with a cane, say, "Oh, I'm Don Blake." Yeah. Search it, MD, not PhD. That would be awesome. That would be great. And I think, is that enough connections for this week, Phil? We had a nice long roundup. We can do a quickie Superconnectivity. What do you say?
Yeah, that's good. And like you said, there wasn't that much Marvel news this week.
Yes. And we did avoid politics. So, but the politics will be back. I guess we touched on it a little bit. I mean, like I said, I just don't feel it's worth addressing people who are upset about the suggestion that Zendaya might be Mary Jane, because we don't know. So it's like not even worth anyone that wants to explode about it. It's like, why do that now? It's not worth it right now because it's just a rumor. So let's not even dignify it with a response. Now, when it actually becomes official, and everyone goes, see, and now they're ruining it. I'm going to say, well, they haven't ruined anything yet, so why should we assume that? Okay. So anyway, Phil, if they would like to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, they can always email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. And make sure to check out my other podcast, Before the Bat. I'm going to be on Channel 52 more now, and that'll be the new home of World's Finest. And remember to check out me, Charlie Esser, and several of our other friends on the upcoming Legends of DC podcast coming this fall.
Yay! And of course, if you ever want to reach out to me, you can certainly do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, live tweet with me 7 o'clock on Saturdays when I live tweet The Incredible Hulk or various other shows that I watch when they return in the fall, including Legends of Tomorrow and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Okay, folks, that is our connections for this week. Please connect with us again.